YouTube, what is going on? Welcome back to another Identity 5 video. Today I have the Season 15 Survivor tier list for you guys. I know I've been asking that for a while, and I've been really busy with work. I apologize for that. But now I'm finally able to finish it. Before we begin, if you guys have the chance, don't forget to check out the Fusion Discord server in the video description below. Yeah, don't forget to, check that out. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, getting into the video now. I do have 6 different tiers on the Survivor tier list. We have S tier, A tier, A-, B, C, and D. And I know a lot of people ask this about the most recent tier list, like I did for like Season 14 and stuff. So I will describe this now. Basically, how I rate each of these survivors is it's kind of like a little bit of both. It's mostly for tournament, how they're used in tournament, and a little bit of how, a little bit of, how the win rates and stuff in rank and whatever, but most of it has to do with, like, how well these survivors perform in specific team comps in tournament against certain hunters, certain meta hunters that you would expect to see in tournament, right? So, yeah, okay. So, getting into the first tier, the first tier on the tier list is D tier. So, those are, like, the worst survivors, the most unviable. And the worst survivor, unfortunately, in the game it's kind of a toss-up between Thief and Lucky Guy, but it is Thief, in my opinion. Well, Thief actually may be pretty good and a lot of fun. The biggest issue with Thief is moonwalking. There's a lot of hunters that have abilities that can just let them look away from the Thief. You can hold teleport down, and that can look away from the Thief's flashlight and catch up to him. You have hunters with chip abilities that can chip the Thief before the flashlight has any effect. You can use abilities that, to turn your camera angle away from the Thief's flashlight and look away, and they just can't really do anything. So, yeah, that's kind of the problem with Thief. He's just very underwhelming survivor. I mean, at best, he's a kiter. Can't really do much of anything else, and it's just not very good, unfortunately. The other survivor in D tier is Lucky Guy. I mean, all of us pretty much know Lucky Guy is a very subpar character, very underwhelming. I mean, yes, he can search a chest, but he's not guaranteed an item, so, you could be like, oh my god, I'm going to play Lucky Guy and get a bunch of flare guns. Well, it's like, okay, let me go wish for a flare gun, and I get, like, a syringe at the beginning of the match, and I just wasted, like, 20 seconds I could have been decoding, and already the Cypher Rush is subpar, because I was searching a chest, and I got a useless item. So, Lucky Guy is just very underwhelming, inconsistent, and, unfortunately, just, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, not a very good character, in general, so... I'll try to get through this tier list as quick as possible. I want to talk more as we get towards like the upper tier characters and the more viable characters. I'll talk a little bit more about them than the lower tiers, because the lower tiers are pretty, for the most part, pretty self-explanatory of why they're not as good, right? Moving on to C tier. The first survivor in C tier is Postman. Now Postman did get buffed sometime last season. I can't remember when exactly, but. Postman just kind of, he's, again, also very underwhelming. A good Postman is actually a decent kiter. A good Postman can use that dog to slow down the hunter. If the hunter's catching up, you can slow them down. It's sort of like a dancer slow box in a way on the hunter. It might actually be a little bit slower. I think it is. I'm not sure, actually. But yeah, you can slow the hunter down with your dog, but the dog only lasts a couple seconds, and once it's gone, you can't use it for a while. On top of that, the Postman can send letters to other survivors, but the problem is there's just better support characters in general. The letters usually aren't too effective, and I think they wear off eventually. I don't know. I honestly, I don't know much about Postman, but I do know that he is he's pretty unviable in top tiers. There's just better supporting characters and better kiters. So he has a little bit of support, he has a little bit of kite, but overall, it's just too underwhelming. It's very subpar in comparison to the A and S tier characters that can support and kite. The next survivor in C tier is Lawyer. Now, Lawyer, the reason why Lawyer's not, with the other some of the other veterans like Lucky Guy and Thief down in D tier, is Lawyer's actually not a bad character for 4-person VC. He's not bad, right? There are arguably better characters, but Lawyer, he basically can use his map to find the location of the hunter, see which direction the hunter is going, stuff like that. Once he finishes a cipher, as long as he still has some map left, he can decode 20% faster, which is actually pretty good. It's actually not bad. It's just he also can't get Terror Shock, so he could also rescue if he vaults. So you can like vault in front of the hunter. So say you like have broken windows, you vault in front of the hunter, get hit, you get your broken window speed boost, veterans bonus, and also the hit bonus from when you hit, so veterans bonus essentially, right? So you get like an insane speed boost, and you can get really far away from the hunter, which is pretty cool. But for the most part, there's a lot better decoding characters. There's a lot better support characters. For example, Seer is just a better version of Lawyer's Vision. The Seer can see the hunter at the start of the match. You can periodically see the hunter throughout the map if he catches a glimpse of him. And he also has that owl as well, which is just kind of more of a bonus than the Lawyer actually has. In terms of decoding, I mean, Mechanic Explorer are just better decoders. So that's unfortunately why Lawyer is in C tier. There is an argument that he could be B tier for sure. And he may actually be B tier, but the way I have it is, in my opinion at least, and based off of how he would actually get played in tournament, which he really wouldn't, he is a C tier character. The next character in C tier is Mind's Eye. Now, Mind's Eye is... the biggest issue with Mind's Eye is that if you get found as the Mind's Eye, your team will probably lose the match. I mean, it's just that simple. You can still tie if the Mind's Eye does a decent kite, but Mind's Eye is just a very, very bad kiter. The hunter can kind of, sneak up on her easily if she's already used her cane and her cane's on cooldown, because the Mind's Eye can't see. Against a character like Dream Witch, for example, the Dream Witch will literally just come out of nowhere and Terror Shock the Mind's Eye out the Cypher. I mean, it's just that simple, because the Mind's Eye can't see the leech follower coming. The only way the Mind's Eye actually knows, if the hunter's, kind of approaching her is if she gets heartbeat. But the problem is, like, you simply just have to, not switch to your follower until it's close to the Mind's Eye, and you can just hit it right off the Cypher. I need to get a haircut. I said this last video, but I still need to get a haircut. It's getting kind of long. It's alright. Anyways, so that's kind of the biggest issue with Mind's Eye, is she is not very strong against Dream Witch, especially because the Dream Witch can find her as well, because how fast the Dream Witch is in the early game. Yeah, that's just kind of the biggest issue, is if the hunter finds the Mind's Eye, it's GG's. It's just that simple. And a lot of hunters will carry, if there's a Mind's Eye, the hunter will just carry Quenching Effect, and they can find the Mind's Eye anywhere on the map, and it's that easy. So that's the problem with Mind's Eye, is if the Mind's Eye is not found, it's almost usually a guaranteed tie just because of how fast her decoding is. But considering the fact that it's extremely hard to actually find it's extremely hard to avoid the hunter as the Mind's Eye, especially with Quenching Effect as a thing, especially as Dream Witch, especially with Wu Chang, Bloody Queen, it really won't happen. Most hunters will just carry Teleport Quenching. You get found within 50 seconds of the match, and it's GG's. So that is why Mind's Eye is unfortunately a C tier survivor. Moving on to the next tier. The next tier is going to be B tier. These survivors are they're decent. They are rarely viable third round in a tournament. Rarely viable third round in a tournament. But technically, if they're okay, they're good if you're going against a specific hunter, and you may want to try to counter that hunter with a mediocre survivor. And the first survivor in B tier is Dancer. Now, I actually would like to put Dancer in C tier, but there were a few people that said that Dancer should at least be B tier, just because she's not bad. I mean, she does get countered pretty much by she's pretty weak against Bon, weak against Sculptor, weak against Bloody Queen. She's actually decent against something like Dream Witch and Wu Chang. But for the most part, against the chip hunters, it's a lot harder for Dancer to actually be successful. She can use her fast boxes to help decode faster, although it's not really much of a bonus. But it can make a difference in the late game. If you're trying to rush the last Cypher and you want to put down fast boxes to help out, it can make the difference in the game. I actually had a ranked match today where we were rushing a Cypher with a female Dancer. She put down a fast box. The hunter, I was playing Seer, and the hunter actually had to remove the boxes because I was kind of looping her around the area where the boxes were, where the Cypher was. I know I'm supposed to leave, but the hunter couldn't catch me. It was a Bloody Queen, and she didn't want to use her mirror. And basically, she had to remove both boxes, and I was able to farm like a whole owl with my Seer. So it's actually a pretty cool, neat little trick there. But yeah, for the most part, Dancer does kind of get countered. The slow boxes are pretty good for tight kiting. Again, that's why it's good against something like Wu Chang or Dream Witch. Because you want to try to tight kite the leeches, tight kite the Wu Chang, tight kite a Geisha. It's a Geisha, but nobody really plays Geisha. And that's decent against Ripper early game as well. But unfortunately, some of the meta hunters, Sculptor Bon in particular, she's not too strong against. And that is why she's a B tier survivor. The next survivor in B tier is Entomologist. Now, Entomologist, a lot of people there are some people think Entomologist is really bad. Some people think Entomologist is actually underrated. I'm kind of in the middle area. I personally don't think Entomologist is too good. She's not too bad. The biggest issue with Entomologist is her kiting is okay, but she has that downside when she leaves the hunter's vision, the hunter can see her for 5 extra seconds. In my opinion, that's completely unnecessary. Entomologist is not good enough of a survivor to actually, should have that as an effect, right? She's not good enough. She has good support with her beast. The hunter can actually lose the survivor sometimes. But again, if you are using your beast to distract the hunter, it means you're not decoding. And Cypher Rush is a key in tournament scenario. Cypher Rush. And Entomologist lacks that when she is supporting. Now, her support can sometimes change games, but there are better support characters than the Entomologist. Her kiting is not bad in specific areas on certain maps. You can put the bees on like walkways, like narrow areas, and it'll block the hunter off and it'll slow them down, and sometimes can get you some pretty good distance, but for the most part it's not as strong as some other kiters. So she does add the vaulting speed boost when she vaults windows in Palace, which isn't bad as well, but it ends up not making too much of a difference because most survivors often don't end up kiting in the same area that you kite in, because you're probably working in a different cipher. The hunter opts to leave you to go after the other survivor. They're going to be in a different kiting area. So for the most part, it's not too big of a deal. The 10% doesn't make too big of a difference anyways, even if you did kite in that area. So for the most part, Entomologist is just a B tier survivor. The next survivor in B tier, some people may disagree with this, but it is Acrobat, and I actually stand by this pretty hard. I actually don't think Acrobat is a very good character. He is a decent containment type character, but for the most part, he's not very good in any team comp. He's good on Moonlit River Park. I mean, that's about it. He can kite pretty well around 4-stop. He can kite pretty well around 1st-stop. He can use the platforms and the slides to his advantage, and he's a very strong kiting character on Moonlit River Park. But on other maps, I personally don't believe Acrobat is very good. He's a very fun character to play. He doesn't support the team really in any way. He can rescue off maybe something like a Bonbon or Sculptor if you actually hit the fireball. Some hunters will try to move out of the way, but sometimes it's unavoidable if you do it right. So, but for the most part, Acrobat, he gets countered by Bloody Queen. Chip hunters are very strong against him. He doesn't really do anything against Dream Witch. Dream Witch just kind of destroys him if you get Patroller. There's nothing you can do. So the fireballs do nothing against the leeches, pretty much. So the problem with Acrobat is like the 4 main hunters. That being Bloody Queen, Dream Witch, Sculptor, Bonbon. Axboy is another main hunter, but I guess he's okay against Axboy. I don't really know. I mean, I'm not. He's just kind of average. But against those other 4 hunters, he's just very weak, and he just. He'll get knocked down pretty quickly. So Acrobat is not a very good kiter against those hunters. Again, he doesn't support the team in any real way. But he's a good kiter on Moonlit, and he's a good kiter, in general. He has good abilities to help him kite. But ultimately, something like Perfumer is actually stronger, because Perfumer is a better rescuer. Perfumer is stronger on certain things like Sacred Heart Hospital or any 2-story map. You can loop hunters for long periods of time with Perfumer, and Perfumer actually goes pretty well with something like a Seer and works in specific team comps, whereas Acrobat does not. And that is why Acrobat is a B tier survivor. The next survivor in B tier is Doctor. Now, Doctor, as we all know, got a buff like last season sometimes. She used to have to do the full heal on herself, and that was pretty weak. I mean, a good hunter would almost never let that happen. But now she can heal herself a quarter at a time. And again, the reason why Doctor is not that good is because chip hunters are a big part of this meta. Bonbon and Sculptor are a huge part of this meta. Now, Doctor is decent against something like Dream Witch. Barmaid is significantly better. Doctor's okay. Doctor's strong against something like a Mad Eyes. Actually, Doctor hard counters 2 hunters in particular. That is Mad Eyes and Photographer. She's a soft counter to Dream Witch. So the thing with Doctor is, once the Photographer does that extra quarter damage, because you know how his hits do extra quarter damage, she can heal off all that damage. She can heal off any sort of weird damage the Photographer put on herself or another survivor, which is pretty strong. She can heal off any damage that a Mad Eyes did with chips. What a lot of Mad Eyes do nowadays is they use teleport and they fence off survivors until they actually down someone. But if you fence the Doctor, she'll just heal it off. And you can do nothing against a Doctor if you're a Mad Eyes. So Doctor is actually a pretty hard counter to Mad Eyes. But other than that, she's not very good against. She's not good against any chip hunters. Bonbon and Sculptor just destroy Doctor. Against something like Axboy usually isn't too good as well because he's just kind of too fast, and it's very hard to get a heal off against an Axboy. So, and on top of that, Violinist even. Once you get the stacks of notes on you, you heal slower. and you never can get the heal off against a violinist as well. So a lot of the top meta hunters, Doctor is just very weak against, and that is why she's a B tier survivor. She has a good ability in general, where she can heal herself very quickly, and that can save games sometimes, or save kites at least. But ultimately, it's just too weak against a lot of the meta tournament hunters that we see nowadays. The next survivor in B tier is Painter. Now, Painter used to be very good. Painter used to be A+ S tier when he first came out. You guys know back in Season 14 he got nerfed. And now he's just very underwhelming. The problem with Painter is, 1, the hunter can see the radius of the painting. 2, he only gets 2 paintings. And those are just the two... those are just the 2 downsides to Painter, is that he only gets 2 paintings, the hunter can see the radius of the paintings. And the hunter actually, the painter has to actually see the hunter's face before they can paint. If the painter still had 3 paintings, and the hunter could see the radius, that might be more balanced, or that might make him not necessarily balanced. He's pretty balanced now. That might make him more like A tier, something like that. But now Painter is just he's just very underwhelming. Excitement just destroys him. The hunter again can see the radius of the painting. They don't have to look at it. They can sort of moonwalk away from it. Painter is just he's just underwhelming. He does have that share time, which can make the difference. You can make it so you can save the Painter at any time pretty much and get away with it. But for the most part, that doesn't make too big of a difference. It can make a difference in some games. If you die in someone's Cypher, you can instantly save them with Tide Turner. The Painter can get away. Or if you save the Painter after half towards where he's about to die, you instantly save him with Tide. You waste a free 20 seconds. So that's not bad, but for the most part, Painter's abilities just aren't as strong as some of the other containment type / support characters. And that is why he is a B tier survivor. The next survivor in B tier is the Prisoner. Prisoner is his decoding. The reason why he's not something like A tier or A- tier is his decoding is just not strong enough to be a top tier decoding survivor. He is a decoding type character, but his decoding is not good enough to actually be considered a strong decoder. And the reason for that is he decodes 10% faster when he's got a connection, and some of the transmission gets lost when you're transmitting it anyway, depending on, I think it's like how many people are injured or something. That's the problem with Prisoner, is that his decoding is not fast enough to be considered a strong decoding type character. Mechanic and Explorer are significantly stronger. Prisoner does not get utilized in tournament, hardly ever. You actually see Prisoner get used a little bit in rank, and that's reasonable. Prisoner's a fun character. He's an easy decoder to play, in that you don't have to be... You can be not so good of a kiter and still do well, and still kite well with Prisoner because you have a shock, like in the Enchantress stun, basically. His kiting skills are better than something like Mechanic and Explorer for that matter, because Explorer doesn't have a shock. So Prisoner is not bad when, with those sort of instances. But Hunters, when you're playing Hunter and you see a Prisoner and you see, I don't know, like a Seer, you don't even care. You could chase either one of the two and you would not have a problem, and you'd still probably be, the decoding would still be about the same. If you see a Mechanic and a Seer, or let's say Explorer and a Seer, you want to chase the Explorer. I mean, it's that simple, because the Explorer's decoding is way better. Mechanic's decoding is way better. Prisoner, in difference, comparison to Mechanic, is the Mechanic can decode with the bot while on share. Prisoner cannot do this. He cannot make connections while on share. He's just... what I see a lot of Prisoners do as well is they stop to make a connection after getting saved with Tide Turner, and you just feed the Hunter presence because the Hunter can just keep hitting you. So... that's another thing. If you want to actually an argument about Prisoner is, he can make a connection while in Tide Turner. Well, Mechanic can also decode with their bot while in Tide Turner and doesn't feed the Hunter presence because you're probably still trying to run away and get away from the Hunter. Whereas Prisoner, you have to stop to check your connection. Mechanic does have to stop to check her bot sometime, but she can do it when she drops. If she does it quick enough, or she can do it right before she drops. Whereas Prisoner, you kind of it's just not as strong. Prisoner, and overall again, Prisoner's decoding. Mechanic has a 25% increased decoding with her bot, whereas Prisoner at best has 10% if he has a connection. And it's just the decoding is very subpar, and there are just better decoding characters in general. So that is why Prisoner is a B tier survivor. The next survivor in B tier is Enchantress. Now, I actually don't think Enchantress is too good. The problem is that Enchantress, again, is just very underwhelming, and she's not even that good against the chip hunters. You guys might say, oh, yeah, Sculptor, Bonbon, she hard counters them. She really doesn't. I mean, she just is not as strong against them as she needs to be viable. You don't see Enchantress almost ever get used in tournament. They never get used in the Asia servers. She never gets used pretty much in AU tournament gameplay ever. The only two good Enchantress players I've ever seen are Jojo and Pillow Bear. Those are the only two Enchantress players I've ever seen be successful with her in NAEU. And she's just too weak. I mean, you can add up your stuns. Her 3-stack is nowhere near as effective as a Coordinator Flare Gun. She can harass a little bit, but the 1-stack stuns don't really do much. The Hunter's just going to hit the Survivor down anyways. You can drop the Survivor to avoid the stun. It's just, Enchantress is just too underwhelming of a harasser or kiter for that matter. I mean, she can harass and kite, but both her harassing and her containment type skills are just not strong enough to be a tournament viable survivor in Identity 5. And that is simply why she is just a B tier, sort of a mediocre B tier survivor. The next survivor in B tier is Gardener. Now, Gardener, I personally don't think Gardener is that good, but she actually is utilized quite a bit over in the across the world over in the Asia servers, and she's been starting to be used more here in NAU as well. And the reason for that is she's actually pretty strong against something like Bloody Queen, or she's strong against hunters with slow pallet break speed, or who don't have chipping abilities, right? So she can also, if done properly, she could save while damaged against non-chipping hunters, but she can save while damaged. Gardener, what she does is at the start of the match, she starts out with a 50-second bubble, which is actually pretty strong, because if the Gardener gets found first and you're against a non-chip hunter, the Gardener, you're forced to, you can feed, it does feed the hunter presence, but the Gardener can take a hit for free, which is very strong. Also, if she stands still for 2 seconds, she gets a bubble for 5 seconds, I think is what it is. And that's pretty strong. Because against something like a Bloody Queen, if she goes to put up her mirror image, you stand still, as long as she doesn't get the swing off in time, which good Bloody Queens actually will. That's one of the reasons why Gardener can be weak. But she can take the hit with that bubble, the Bloody Queen goes into attack recovery, and the Gardener transitions and essentially kites out a mirror image for free. That is why Gardener is not bad. Now, her chair breaking ability, that doesn't do a whole lot. That's not usually what she's used for. I mean, you can do that, and it slows down the hunter not significantly, slows them down a little bit. But for the most part, she's used for those bubbles, which again, aren't too bad. But against meta hunters like Dream Witch, not Bloody Queen, Dream Witch, Sculptor, Bonbon, it's a lot weaker. Because they, all they have to do is chip off that bubble, or even just wait out the bubble. I mean, they could do that. Any hunter could do that as well. And this is why I'm saying it's not good against Dream Witch, because Dream Witch simply just patrollers the Gardener. Most Dream Witches bring Patroller. You patrol the Gardener and wait for the bubble to go away and just kill her. And it's that simple. She does get a Veteran's bonus, which isn't bad when she's hit, without a bubble. She's hit regular, so that's a little bit of a bonus for her. But for the most part, Gardener is not bad against a couple hunters, but not great overall. And that is why she's a top of B tier survivor, a high B tier survivor, but B tier nonetheless. Moving on to A minus tier, this is the next tier. These survivors are above mediocre. They are viable later round in tournament and in specific team comps. And the first survivor in A minus tier is Magician. Now, Magician, there's kind of a debate whether I should put Magician in B tier or A minus tier. If I put Magician in B tier, Joggy might kill me, so I can't really do that. But also, I mean, Magician does probably deserve A minus tier. He's not a bad kiter whatsoever. You can loop a lot of magicians will do is they'll kind of loop certain areas, and when the hunter actually gets close to hitting them, they'll just illusion it. And then they'll loop a palleted area. When the hunter gets close, illusion it again. And this is very strong against something. And another thing that's nice about Magician, in comparison to something like Perfumer, is Magician doesn't feed the hunter presence. And against something like a Wu Chang, that is very strong, right? Because you don't want to feed the Wu Chang presence. You ever hear that? Don't feed the Wu Chang presence? Yeah, that's why. So yeah, Magician's not bad. Now, the biggest issue with Magician is he is very hard to rescue off of if the hunter has decent camp. Okay, so if the hunter is like a Violinist, Feaster, Bonbon, or Sculptor, It's most of the time you will not see that magician getting rescued. Sometimes they'll save off of Io, because of Io, if he misses the note, then you can still make the rescue. But it is a lot harder because the Io does have that. He can throw the notes and do the hit really quickly, and it's hard to get that timing right. But with magician, you can't kind of just go in for a straight in save. You kind of have to bait the hunter into actually hitting you first, because if you go in for the straight in save, you'll probably get terror shock. Most hunters have enough reaction time to terror shock you if you're trying to save the magician that way. But again, his illusions aren't bad. Some people argue he should have 3 illusions. I think 2 is pretty balanced. Because additionally, he also gets that bonus, where he's rescued off the rocket chair. He turns invisible for a couple of seconds, and it can kind of mess with the hunter a little bit. And sometimes you can actually lose hunters like that if you do it properly, depending on what chair it is and what map. But magician he's not a bad kiter, and he doesn't have, his abilities are pretty good. So overall, magician is a solid A- tier survivor. The next survivor in A- tier is Batter. Now, over in China, I think they actually have Batter like it was really low, sort of like C tier-ish. Here, Batter's been utilized pretty well, and mostly in rank, but he is technically tournament viable in later rounds. Batter is a good kiter. He's actually a very strong kiter. He can also harass the hunter, but his harassing isn't very strong in comparison to other harassers like Forward. Forward is just a way better harasser. Wildling is a better harasser. Even Cowboy might arguably be a better harasser. But Batter can also save while one shot, which isn't bad. If he does his, I call it rage mode. I think there's a certain name for it. I don't know the name, so I apologize for that. But Batter can save while he's in rage mode. If he hits, they chair the survivor, he can instantly hit the hunter into the chair and save the survivor, which isn't bad. His harassing is not bad. The biggest problem with him is his decoding is slower. He's technically a containment type character. He's not really a rescuer, but his decoding is slower, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I don't know. I don't make the rules. NetEase does, so So yeah, Batter's not bad. His vaulting speed is increased as well, which is pretty strong. But for the most part, his kiting is strong. His harassing is not great, but he can harass in theory. And his decoding is weakened. So overall, that kind of bounces out, in my opinion, to an A- tier survivor. And that is where he is on this tier list. Moving on to the next survivor in A- tier, this is Barmaid. I actually don't like Barmaid very much. I don't think she's very good. The only reason why she actually makes A- tier is because she's actually very strong against Dream Witch. And Dream Witch is the best hunter in the game. I'm sure you guys all know that. And that's fine because, in comparison to something like Doctor, Barmaid, once she takes that hit, she can transition and drink at the same time. And you can transition away from the main body, get away from the spawn follower, whatever, force them to catch up to you, and you can usually get your heal off. With Doctor, you have to stand still to get the heal off, which isn't as strong because you can't transition away from the main body. So that is why Barmaid is stronger than Doctor against something like Dream Witch. She's also very strong against something like Bloody Queen. Because if you do the math, I said this in the most recent and the season 14 tier list video, but this is kind of the same. It's the same concept. Against something like Bloody Queen, if you get mirror hit, the mirror goes into a cooldown. The Barmaid needs 20 seconds to drink. 21 seconds? 20 seconds? Something like that. The Bloody Queen's mirror cooldown plus the time it takes to run out from the first mirror usually results in Barmaid getting the heal off in time. All right, and if you have a Seer on the team, you can guarantee that with the Seer Owl. So, you are just hoping she doesn't have Blink, though. That's the thing, and that's why Barmaid's very weak. Is Barmaid gets countered by a very popular trait called Blink. So that is why Barmaid's not too good. But against Patrol or Dream Witch, it is. She's also very, very weak against Bon Sculptor. The two most. Sculptor is the number 2 most common hunter in tournament after Dream Witch. After Dream Witch is banned, Sculptor gets played, and Sculptor just destroys Barmaid. I mean, Barmaid, you cannot kite a Sculptor as a Barmaid. You almost never will get your heal off. You have to be an absolute god and hope the Sculptor messes up and doesn't have Blink at the same time. Because if they have all those things, you're dead. Same with Bon. A good Bon will bomb. Once you use that drink, they'll bomb the drink. They'll bomb you, cancel the drink, and you're screwed. So that is why Barmaid is A- tier. She is very strong against Bloody Queen Dream Witch, very weak against pretty much every other hunter. And that is why, or hunters that carry Blink for that matter. And that is why Barmaid is an A- tier survivor. The next survivor in A- tier is Cowboy. Oh my god, I've been talking for a while. I need to get some water soon. Is Cowboy. Now, Cowboy... God, let me fix my hair. Okay. Now, Cowboy is is a good kiter. Cowboy is a good kiter. He can harass, and that makes him decent. That makes him enough to be A- tier. Once he lassos those pallets, he actually gets or Cypher, he gets a very good speed boost. He can lasso over the hunter and get a speed boost as well. And that allows for constant transition kiting. And actually, we actually don't know this in NAEU. I'm sure if you asked a lot of people, they wouldn't know this. But according to China, at least from what I've heard, Cowboy is actually a pretty good counter to for Sculptor. And the reason for that is Sculptor can get beat by constant transition kiting. And kiting in the open, Sculptor's not very good against kiting in the open, whereas Bon is a little bit better against kiting in the open because you can still hit the chain bombs. Sculptor cannot really hit statues if the survivor knows what they're doing. So, Cowboy can constantly transition in the open by lassoing things and getting those speed boosts to transition, and it makes it very hard for the Sculptor to actually down a Cowboy if the Cowboy knows what they're doing. And that is why Cowboy is actually pretty strong against Sculptor, and Sculptor is, as we know, a meta survivor, or a meta hunter. Cowboy is also decent against Bloody Queen, because if the Bloody Queen tries to sandwich in the Cowboy, you can either 1, lasso a pallet nearby, get a speed boost and transition away from the mirror, or 2, lasso over the Bloody Queen, and if you're close enough to a kiting area, you can get the speed boost and transition into that area without the Bloody Queen able to hit you, and you actually have the ability as a Cowboy to kite out mirror images, and that is very hard to do considering that good Bloody Queens don't really miss their mirrors. So if you're able to kite out a mirror image, considering how long the Bloody Queen's mirror cooldown is, that makes the difference in matches. Cowboy can also harass late game. He can buy a little bit of time for you to prime that last Cypher, so that's always not bad as well. But he does get countered by excitement, and also a lot of hunters will, they can just drop the survivor a bunch of times, and the Cowboy can't do much. If they're close enough to the chair, the Cowboy can make it. If you die far enough away from a chair, he can actually make the survivor struggle, which is pretty nice. But for the most part, his harassing isn't as strong as some other characters like Forward. But overall, that makes Cowboy a solid A- tier survivor. Moving on to the next survivor in A- tier, that is Prospector. Now, Prospector, I actually wanted to put Prospector a lot lower because I don't know. I don't really think Prospector is too good. But he is utilized a little bit later around in tournament. And the reason for this is he's pretty good at kiting out Patroller. Prospector is actually one of the best characters for kiting out Patroller because you can magnet the... sorry about that. You can magnet the hunter, and if you have a patrol on you, you can push yourself away. You can cancel the Patroller bite for that one particular bite if you use a magnet. And Prospector has the ability to kite out Patroller, whereas most survivors do not. And that is why Prospector, there's not much to say about Prospector besides that. He is decent against Dreamwitch because he can potentially kite out the Patroller. He's also a hard counter to something like Anne. Anne doesn't really get played, but he's a hard counter to her. He can, in theory, kite out a Bloody Queen mirror image if you magnet the Bloody Queen when she tries to sandwich you. However, good Bloody Queens will mirror you from a distance and avoid getting magneted, so that's kind of the problem. Yeah, besides that, he's not bad against something like against hunters with small hitboxes. He's not bad against Bon, for example. So that just based off of those things, he can also buy a little bit of time late game if you want to magnet the hunter if they're trying to pick up a survivor. You can magnet the hunter, force the hunter to drop the survivor. You can never really harass to a point where the survivor, is rescued. Sometimes you can get them struggle free, but it's rare. But you can buy a few extra seconds late game to prime a Cypher, and that can make the difference in matches. So overall, Prospector is viable later rounds in tournament, and he is a A- tier survivor. Perfumer is the next survivor in A- tier, and I actually had Prospector higher than Perfumer last tier list. But for this one, I actually was watching the Call of Abyss qualifiers for Southeast Asia, and a Perfumer 5 Cypher kited 72S violinist, and 72S is one of the best hunters in the world. And I was like, wow, maybe Perfumer is a little bit better than I originally thought. Now, Perfumer is weak against chip hunters. Okay, we know that, right? Perfumer's not very good against Bon, not very good against Sculptor, and also not very good against Dreamwitch. Patroller, maybe against Blink Dreamwitch if you're a very good enough Perfumer and can predict blinks, but against something like a Patroller Dreamwitch, she is very weak because you just Patroller the Perfumer, wait for her to perfume, wait for the perfume to run out, and the Patroller's still on her, so you can just hit her then. And she wasted her perfume and you get the free hit. So that's the problem with Perfumer. against Patroller. That's wrong with Perfumer against Bonbon Sculptor. But Perfumer is actually very strong against other hunters like Bloody Queen, and as we saw, like Violinist, and was also very strong on specific maps. 2-story maps. A lot of team comps you would see in tournament that go well with Perfumer is after in the later rounds, after the Sculptor's banned, after the Dream Witch is banned, you can go Perfumer, and you can have like a heavy rescuer team comp. A lot of team comps they'll go like 3 rescuers in a Perfumer, or 2 rescuers and Explorer in a Perfumer. The Explorer goes into small mode; he can never get found. And you don't want to chase a rescuer. So as the hunter, you are forced to chase a Perfumer. And on a 2-story map such as Sacred Heart Hospital, with your perfumes, you can loot that 4/5 ciphers. And we saw that in the game against 72S. But that is why Perfumer is actually still a strong A- tier, almost A tier. I did put her in A- tier because I think she is weak against Bonbon Sculptor, Dream Witch, which are the 3 main hunters. But she's pretty good, strong against Axeboy. She's pretty strong against Vio. Very strong against Bloody Queen. One of the few survivors that can actually kite a Bloody Queen effectively. And pairs very well with Seer as well. So that is why Perfumer is a high A- tier survivor. The last survivor in A- tier is Coordinator. Now, Coordinator's not too strong because once you use that flare gun, you really don't have. She's pretty useless after that. A lot of people think that. I actually think she's not too bad because she can kite pretty well. She has increased vaulting speed. She's in 10% increased vaulting speed. She also has increased chair persistence. So if you chase that Coordinator first, you get the Coordinator down, you put her on a rocket chair. She dies 10% slower, I think is what it is, than any other survivor, than a regular survivor. So that is not bad to have. Coordinator can buy time on the rocket chair for a while. And I think the argument with Coordinator is, okay, well, I can just bring Excitement as a hunter and I beat Coordinator. Well, yeah, I mean, you can bring Excitement for a Coordinator, but that means you're not bringing a more useful trait such as Peepers, such as Teleport, such as Blink. And your early game chase is going to take a lot longer because you had Excitement instead of a more useful trait. And it's going to take you a lot. You're going to get kited earlier, in the early game, and that can make the difference in matches. And that is why Coordinator is not a bad character. She's a high A- tier survivor. Also, for a rescue type character, her decoding is not bad. She decodes regular until survivor gets on chair. It is 30% slower, but as long as you have good rotation, and the opening kiter does pretty well, Coordinator can get a lot of free decoding in and promote Cypher Rush in a way that the other rescuers cannot do. And that is why Coordinator is a high A- tier survivor. Oh man, this is taking a while. We're already on 37 minutes. Jeez, I knew this was gonna take a while, but yeah, okay. Let's get through this quickly. We're trying not to make you guys be here too long. Moving on to the next tier, it is A tier. Now, the first survivor in A tier is Embalmer. I actually didn't want to put Embalmer in A tier. I actually thought he was A- at best, but many people told me that he is A tier. So I kind of had to. I kind of had to put him in A tier. So Embalmer is A tier. If I didn't put Embalmer in A tier, I think Numer and Music Man would get pretty mad about that. So I am leaving Embalmer in A tier just because I don't want because they know what they're talking about. I'll believe them, whatever. I personally wouldn't play Embalmer on my team. Maybe late round. Embalmer. Okay, so let's talk about Embalmer in detail. Okay, let's get into it a little bit. Okay. Embalmer is a good late round survivor when you need a specific amount of survivors out the exit gate to tie or secure a win in a round. And the reason for that is Embalmer is kind of like your you ever seen like a Yu-Gi-Oh thing where he's like, oh yeah, I gotta pull the perfect card to win the game, right? I mean, I don't watch Yu-Gi-Oh, but when I used to watch it when I was like younger, and I remember that from that. Embalmer is sort of like your special secret card option that wins you the game, right? Embalmer has the ability to embalm a survivor and put the coffin by the exit gate. So if the hunter downs the survivor in the end game, they get escape. Now, you don't get the tide turner effect with Embalmer if the exit gates have been activated. However, you can put the coffin by the exit gate and the survivor can get out the exit gate. And this is why, and before, Embalmer was really bad because you were just kind of like, oh, well, I'm just going to slug the survivor and the coffin does nothing. And then you're literally playing Embalmer, a character that does absolutely nothing because the survivor just gets slugged. However, now you can actually use the coffin when the survivor is on the ground. Embalmer is that secret option that you have that could pull out an extra survivor escape in a specific scenario to win you a game, or tie you around, or secure you a win in a tournament round, right? And he's also not bad on large maps against hunters with very good camp like Sculptor and Bonbon. If they have already used their teleport or do not carry teleport, Embalmer can use their coffin to essentially teleport the survivor that got shared, or themselves if they are that survivor that got shared, across the map, and the hunter with good camp does not get to put that good camp into play because the survivor gets to escape for free, essentially, and they get moved across the map. The hunter can't really do anything about it if they don't have teleport as an option. So for those reasons, Embalmer is an A tier survivor. The biggest weakness with him is that he doesn't have anything to kite with, but that's okay because he does have a strong ability overall that can save matches and save games. Oh man, I'm really losing my voice. I'm gonna have to get water in a second. The next survivor in A tier is First Officer. Now, First Officer. The reason why First Officer isn't an A- tier, and I know a lot of you are like, First Officer sucks, Gravekeeper's better. First Officer is not bad. First Officer does not feed does not feed presence to the hunter, and in this current meta, that is actually very strong. First Officer may not be good against something like Dream Witch, but he is actually pretty good against something like Bonbon. He's pretty good against something like Sculptor, because he can kite. Like something like a Gravekeeper isn't as strong against something like a Sculptor or Bonbon. Because the Gravekeeper 1 feeds presence to the Sculptor, which is very weak, and against Bonbon, the Bonbon can bomb the Gravekeeper out of shovel. Whereas First Officer, as long as you have constant movements, it's very hard for the Bonbon to actually hit those chain bombs on you, and you can dodge every statue for free against a Sculptor. And for the most part, if you know what you're doing as First Officer, you will almost always have a free 40-second kite against a Sculptor, or most hunters for that matter. On top of that, if First Officer does for some reason get chased, he has that increased chair persistence by 20%, which is very strong. First Officer gets used in a lot of heavy rescuer comps, and that has been more of the meta recently, where we'd see a heavy rescuer comp, and you'd have like Wildling, Mercenary forward, and then like First Officer. And First Officer would be the survivor to get chased because out of those four, he's probably the easiest to catch. But the problem is he can waste a lot of time with those watches, and he has increased chair persistence, which allows him to be on the rocket chair for a long period of time, without expiring, I guess is one way to say it, without being sent back to the manor and eliminated from the game. So First Officer can contain the hunter for a while. He is a decent rescuer, has increased chair persistence, and does not feed the hunter presence, and that is why First Officer is now an A tier survivor. Moving on to the next survivor in A tier, that is Wildling. Now, Wildling used to be really bad. As we all know, Wildling used to be one of the worst characters in the game. He did get buffed, and people didn't realize how strong his buff actually was. I didn't even realize that. I mean, last season, I think I put him in, like, B tier, maybe? I'm not really sure. But Wildling is actually very, very strong right now. And the reason for that is he is huge for promoting rotation. Because if you find the Wildling first, you cannot chase him. I mean, you guys know as hunters, you cannot chase the Wildling. You're going to get kited. So the problem with Wildling is, the hunter will usually take a free hit on the Wildling for presence. Ultimately, that's a little bit annoying, but it's not too bad. Some hunters, it doesn't matter. The Dream Witch, it doesn't matter. Bloody Queen, it doesn't really matter. So, overall, this is why Wildling is very good, is he can promote rotation. I cannot stress enough, you cannot chase a Wildling as a hunter. If you find the Wildling first, it's like a Mercenary. You have to leave them. And then if you're in a 4-person VC, the Wildling can follow the hunter around for a short bit of time for free because he has his boar, or you can go back to decoding, and you can tell the rest of your teammates where the hunter is going, and you can rotate accordingly. And Wildling is so strong for rotation. On top of that, he's also a good rescuer. With that boar, you can get all the way up against something like Bonbon or Sculptor. You can get all the way up. For example, against something like a hunter that likes to cut you off from a distance, right? Like maybe Wuching, they'll cut you off from a distance, teleport back to the chair, stuff you. Feaster, cut you off from a distance. Dream Witch, cut you off from a distance with the spawn, Leech Follower, have the spawn on the chair ready to double hit you when you reach the chair. With Wildling, you cannot do this. You cannot do this because Wildling has his boar. Wildling will be able to get to the chair as close as he wants every single time. And that is why he's a good rescuer. Because against something like a Bonbon, they can bomb you from distance. They can make it so you can't even reach the chair and you get stuck before you make it because you get chain bombed so many times. Wildling does not care. He will make it to the chair. He is a strong rescuer. The only time Wildling really ever gets stuffed is if he gets terror shocked. I mean, that is how good of a rescuer Wildling is. Not only can he rescue, he has decent decoding, right? It's like forwards, and that's fine because forwards viable. And he has decent decoding, and for a rescuer, his rest is okay. He heavily promotes rotation. He can mind game the hunter by canceling their tinnitus, which makes it so it's a lot harder to find. Like if you have an explorer on your team, you can use that tinnitus canceling, and it'll make it even harder for them to actually find the explorer. Yeah, I mean it's just so strong. On top of that, he can harass. He can even harass. I mean, it just gets better. He promotes rotation. He can mind game the hunter. He's a very good rescuer. He can harass. His decoding isn't too bad because he's a rescue character. Wildling is a A-tier survivor. He's very strong, and you're going to see more and more of him. If you guys are going to watch Koa, you're going to see more and more Wildling in Koa. I guarantee you. I can promise you that. They use Wildling a lot over in Asia. Hopefully teams from elsewhere will use Wildling as well. Wildling is a solid A-tier survivor. He's very strong right now in the current meta. Moving on to the next survivor in A-tier. I know I talked about Wildling for a lot, guys, but I wanted to stress how good he actually is. The next survivor in A-tier is Gravekeeper. As we all know, there's not much to say about Gravekeeper. He's a very good rescuer. He's a very good kiter. He can waste a lot of the hunter's time if you actually chase him. He's weak against Bonbon, but he's good against pretty much everything else. He can, again, Gravekeeper is one of those survivors that can get really close to the chair without getting hit because he has those shovels. If the hunter tries to cut you off from a distance, all you have to do is shovel, and you can take the hit with shovel, the hunter goes into attack recovery, and you can make the rescue significantly easy. Sometimes Gravekeeper can easily save while injured, depending on if the hunter is a slow, hit hunter, if it's a white form Wu-Chang, if it is a photographer, even a Bloody Queen, you can usually still make the rescue. Sometimes. If you time it right, sometimes you can. It depends. It's kind of a mind game, to be honest, but Gravekeeper can get all... If you have, for example, if you have a Prime Cypher and your one-shot is a Gravekeeper, and even if you do get hit trying to save, you pop the Cypher, the Gravekeeper can get all the way up to the chair, so you minimize the amount of distance and time it takes for you to make that rescue after you get hit, and they pop the Cypher. So, Gravekeeper is a very good rescuer. He can waste a lot of the hunter's time. He does feed the hunter presence, but that's still not too bad. While he's in shovel, he gets a insane. He gets a 10% speed boost. He's a lot faster. It makes the hunter, have to walk even farther to catch up to you and waste more time. And you can get to the chair a lot easier if your Cypher's across the map. So, Gravekeeper is a very good survivor in general. Very good rescuer as well, and that is why he is A-tier. Also, his decoding isn't bad. 15% less is nothing for a rescuer. That's really good. So that's why Gravekeeper is a high A-tier survivor. The next survivor in A-tier and the last survivor in A-tier, the best A-tier survivor, is Explorer. In Asia, they actually have Explorer as S-tier. And the reason why Explorer is so strong is he is a decoding type character that does not get found and does not get chased. Okay, so the biggest downside to having a decoder on your team, so for example, if you have a Mechanic or a Mind's Eye, if the Mechanic or Mind's Eye gets found first, they will probably be killed pretty quickly, right? And that's very weak. However, Explorer against most hunters does not get found because he can hide. And I cannot stress that enough. Explorer is a decoding type character that does not have to get chased. I mean, just think about how strong that is in general, right? That is a very strong concept, and just that right there is why Gravekeeper is high A tier. He's just a decoder that does not get chased. He also has good Cypher Rush. You can mind game the hunter with those password pages. You can go search for 100% password page, and the hunter's like, oh, I still have a few ciphers left. I can still win this game. And the Explorer just instantly pops a cipher from nowhere, and you already have 2 other ciphers primed, and you just win the game. And the hunter's like, what just happened, right? So that is why Explorer can not only mind game the hunter. Not only that, Explorer heavily promotes rotation. The Explorer can use that red arrow when he's in small mode to see where the hunter's going, where they are and what direction they're going, and you can tell your teammates, oh, hunter's going this way, and they can rotate accordingly. And Explorer is a very good survivor for promoting rotation. So he's 1, a decoder that doesn't get found, 2, he promotes rotation, and 3, he can mind game the hunter, and it makes it very hard on the hunter to win games if you do it properly. So he also doesn't get affected by quenching effect if he's in small mode. Quenching effect is not activated on Explorer. And that is why simply Explorer is a high A tier survivor. Also, another thing with Explorer is actually you can carry Tide Turner with Explorer because you usually don't get found first. If you have if you don't have enough Tide Turners on your team, bring Tide with Explorer because Explorer hardly ever gets found, so you never really have to kite. You might have to rescue at some point, so why not bring Tide Turner? Okay, moving on to S tier. They're the last 5 survivors in the game, the last 5 survivors in S tier. The first survivor in S tier is my personal main. That is the Seer. Now, Seer used to be, I think back in, I don't know, a few seasons ago, Seer was the best S tier survivor, but he's slowly fallen out of favor, unfortunately. Sad to see, I know, but he's still very strong. And the reason for that is simply because of all the chip hunters right now. Sculptor and Bonbon are pretty effective against Seer. The Seer Owl feeds Hunter to the Sculptor, or feeds presence to the Sculptor, and the Bonbon can simply chip off the Owl with that bomb. Now, Seer is still very strong for promoting rotation. Seer can see where the hunter spawns, he can see what hunter it is and what direction he's going. Now, in tournament, this is more or less as strong because, you know, if your survivors know what you're doing, they will have a key spawn. They will know where the hunter is going and predict what rotation or what route they are taking. Although some hunters do mix it up to kind of mind game the survivors, so that's why Seer is still pretty strong. And you also know what the hunter is at the beginning of the match in a tournament style setting. So that's kind of strong. But you can see where, you know, if you are a little confused on key spawns, that always helps to have a Seer. You can also see what direction the hunter is going. And Seer's also a very good rank survivor for that reason, because you can't, you know, communicate with everybody because you only do duos at best where the hunter is. You know, if someone else gets a key spawn that you're not in VC with, right? But in tournament, Seer is very good for rotation. Against non-chip hunters, non-chip hunters, Seer makes it so the opening kiter can take 3 hits. I mean, that's very strong in general. Just think about that. That is very strong. With that owl, also a good Seer will build up multiple owls and be able to take multiple hits throughout a game. So that is also very strong as well. And that is why Seer is a S tier survivor. The next survivor in S tier is Forward. Now, Forward, you know, Forward used to be not quite as good as Seer, but he's a little bit better now. Simply because Forward will sometimes, certain hunters will actually ban Forward round 1 in a tournament. If they know there's a good Forward player on the other team, they will ban Forward. Now, Forward is very strong because he can literally save games for survivors. Forward can be the difference between a win and a loss and a tie, a loss and a win, whatever you want it to be. But Forward can harass the hunter so long in certain situations that survivors can prime ciphers and win games. Not only that, is he can sometimes save one shot. You can stun on chair. So when the hunter chairs the survivor, you can immediately stun the hunter while they're chairing them while they're in the chair animation, and you can make the rescue successfully. That is very strong. Forward again can also harass late game to buy time for the survivors. His decoding isn't too bad. Forward is also a very, very good kiter. If you chase the Forward, you will get kited. So that is why that is simply why Forward is S tier. He's just a very good all-round survivor overall, that is why he's S tier. Forward can be the difference in games. Forward is the hardest character in the game to play, but a good Forward can literally carry your team to victory. The next survivor in S tier is Priestess. Now, Priestess, we know last season did get nerfed a little bit, but it doesn't matter because she's still broke. So basically, Priestess can literally, Priestess can kite a Bloody Queen, Priestess can kite a Sculptor, Priestess can kite a Bonbon, Priestess can kite anything. Priestess can kite anything, no problem. Now, you know, some hunters can cancel the Priestess portals if they're really good with certain abilities, but for the most part, Priestess is broke, okay? And I'll explain why. 1, Priestess can portal through almost anything, so that's already really good right there. If the hunter happens to trap a Priestess at any point, you can just portal through it's like, oh, hey, look, there's a wall right here. Let me just go through it for free and stun the hunter at the same time. I mean, come on, right? Broke. Not only that, the Priestess can set up that global portal or ultra long portal or world portal, whatever you want to call it, in which if the hunter does not have teleport or good map pressure, a survivor can go through that world portal, make it to the other side, and the hunter can knock them down, but the Priestess, with her increased healing time, can heal that survivor quickly, and the survivor's back on their feet just like that. Also, if you rescue a Tide Turner, if the World Portal is kind of far away, the survivor gets hit with Tide Turner, they get the speed boost, they transition to the World Portal and make it before Tide Turner runs out. And just like that, if you're a survivor, you're in an excellent position. So, not only that, Priestess gets healed faster and makes it so the rest of her teammates also, I think everybody gets healed 10% quicker or something when you're a Priestess on your team, something like that. The only downside to Priestess is that, her vaulting speed is 10% slower. I think her decoding as well is 10% slower. I should have Cloudy come in and talk about this. He knows more about Priestess than me. But But other than that, that almost doesn't matter just because of how broken Priestess is. If you have a good Priestess main on your team, you will do very, very well as a survivor team. Priestess is very strong on certain maps. Arms Factory, probably her weakest because there's a lot of thin walls and the portals aren't as long. But on pretty much every other map, especially the 2-story maps, Lakeside Village, Moonlit River Park, Sacred Heart Hospital, Leo's Memory, Ever Sleeping Town, not only the 2-story but also the building she can portal through, Priestess is broken on those maps, and that is why she is a S tier survivor. Not only that, she can also rescue. She can rescue a one-shot because the hunter chairs the survivor. You portal through the chair. You do the portal trick, as it's called, and you get instant save. Against something like a bonbon, you can do this. Even if the bonbon is really good camp, it doesn't matter. Priestess has so many tools going for her. She can rescue, she can kite, she can support. She is one of the best survivors in the game, and that's why she is an S tier survivor. Oh man, I am losing my breath. 2 survivors to go. Okay, here we go. The next survivor in S tier is the Mercenary. Mercenary is the best rescuer in the game, straight up. It's that simple. He has 4 elbow pads, which he can get across the map to make a rescue on a survivor, no problem. He can, he can kite. If you get chased, you will never catch a Mercenary. You're just not catching a Mercenary. The reason for that is Mercenary has increased vaulting speed. He has this where I forgot what it's called, but when you get hit as the Mercenary, you take a longer time for the damage to actually come into effect. You also have 4 elbow pads to constantly transition away from the hunter for free. You have a free transition option. So you can't chase a Mercenary. On top of that, he has a 30% increased chair persistence, so that's just guaranteeing you can't really chase him. The only hunter that will actually chase him is probably a Sculptor, because Sculptor's broke. But Mercenary is the best rescuer in the game. If you get terror shocked as a Mercenary, you can still make the rescue. You will be double hit, but you will still make the save. If you are against a Bonbon or Sculptor, it takes an extra chip damage to stuff the Mercenary. That simple. Yeah, I mean, it's that easy. You can elbow pad up to... You can usually get to the chair without getting hit because you're a Mercenary. You can elbow pad up to the chair for free, no problem. Mercenary is just that good. There's not much to say after that. His decoding is 25% slower, which isn't too bad. There are some slower decoders like Wildling and Forward. Yeah, it's just that simple. You cannot chase a Mercenary. Promotes rotation in that you cannot chase the Mercenary because you will get kited, and you will waste way too much time for it to be worth it. He is the best rescuer. It is very, very, very hard to stuff a Mercenary, almost impossible, unless you're like a chip hunter and get a chip plus a terror shock. A good Mercenary will pretty much never get stuffed unless they get a lucky terror shock. That's pretty much it. He's the best rescuer in the game, and that is why he's the second best survivor in the game, and the second best survivor in S tier. Moving on to the last survivor in S tier, currently the best survivor in the game, that is the Mechanic. Now Mechanic's decoding speed is absolutely broken. Probably shouldn't exist because it's unfair for hunters, but I'm a survivor main, so I'll take it. Mechanic may not be a very good kiter, but if you get found first at the Mechanic and kite very short, you will still tie or win the match because of how fast Mechanic's decoding is if you have your bot in play. Mechanic's bot decodes 25% faster than any other survivor, so that's almost as fast as a Mind's Eye. Mechanic can use that bot to decode while she is on the rocket chair, so even if she gets found first, who cares? Because the decoding is still going to happen very fast. At the start of the match, if you rotate accordingly and a survivor does not get hit for a while, Mechanic can decode 25% faster with her main body for free, and you're already in a very good spot as a survivor team. So not only can the Mechanic promote Cypher much significantly, she can also open the exit gate with her bot. Well, if there's no survivors near the exit gates, Mechanic can simply have the bot on the exit gate and open the exit gate for free. The bot can also heal survivors for free without getting any calibrations. The bot can give Tinnitus to the hunter in certain situations to mind game the hunter. The Mechanic's bot is the most broke thing that's ever existed in this game, most like kind of. Maybe besides Priestess Portals, because Priestess Portals are pretty OP. But the Mechanic's bot is really good. Mechanic is also in rank at least, she is the most commonly banned character. She is banned more than Mercenary. She is banned more than Priestess, Forward, and Seer. And in tournaments, she's usually the round 1 pick to be banned. Now, against something like, it depends on the hunter, against something like a Dream Witch, sometimes they don't ban her in tournament just because, the Dream Witch can find the mechanic first, but even then, you still have the bot in play. So the bot can decode for free while the mechanic is on the rocket chair. And I apologize if there's any background noise, my dogs are barking. The mechanic can decode for free while on the rocket chair, and that's very, very hard on the hunter. Now, some mechanics bring snooze as well, so they can be on the rocket chair for longer periods of time. Mechanic is broke. She basically makes it so the rest of the survivors you only need to decode 4 ciphers to win the game, and you can open one at the exit gates for free. I mean, come on, that's broke. I mean, come on, that's literally OP. On top of that, if you find the mechanic doll first, the mechanic doll can kite as well. It's like a regular kiter. It doesn't have any debuffs in terms of kiting. So the hunter has to waste time chasing the bot. If you waste time chasing the bot, that's free decoding for the rest of the team. If you decide to leave the bot, you're going to get Cypher Rush because the bot's still in play, and that's very hard to deal with if you are a hunter. So because of those things, on top of that, mechanic can save. She can go for a rescue while continuing to decode with her bot. And that is simply why mechanic is S tier and the best survivor in the game by far. Mechanic is broken. And yeah, that's going to wrap it up for the video, guys. I'm sorry this took so long, but I had to get everybody into play there. If you guys like the video, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to check out the Discord server for Fusion. That is in the video description below. As well as the Season 15 Hunter tier list. I will probably wait on the new Hunter to come up before I make the tier list for that. We'll see. But yeah, if you guys like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate all the support. It really does mean a lot. We're close to 600 subscribers. When I first made my YouTube channel, I didn't think we'd get this far, but we have. So thank you guys so much for all that support. Yeah. Peace out, guys, and I'll see you all in the next one.